Howdy, everyone. It's Bradley Stalder, and this is episode 10 of the Bestball Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. In episode 9, I drafted a $1 million to first place DraftKings Best Ball team. It was a 20-round draft where I built a 2-6-9-3 team consisting of Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Kareem Hunt, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Cortland Sutton, Mike Gesicki, Elijah Moore, Russell Gage, Tyler Boyd, Darrell Henderson, Isaiah Spiller, Gerald Everett, Zamir White, KJ Hamler, Alec Pierce, Brevin Jordan, Donta Foreman, and Jalen Guyton. Today, I'll be identifying the highest return on upside value based on that particular player's historical data in the first 10 rounds of your 1 QB best ball drafts. In the first round, Justin Jefferson has returned some of the best value over the last 3 years. Only Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas have higher 3-year win rates than Jefferson. And in 2021, only Kupp and Deebo Samuel had higher win rates. Enter Jefferson, whose 3-year percentile adjusted rank and 2021 percentile adjusted rank for winning weeks is 4th. But Jefferson is often falling to the 5th pick in your drafts or even later. And while drafting Jonathan Taylor 1.01 may be your only exposure to Taylor, picks 2 through 5, you should strongly consider drafting Justin Jefferson. And if Jefferson falls outside of the top 5 of your drafts, consider yourself a winner. Drafters will want pieces of this Vikings passing offense. I've talked about this at length in other podcasts. And come 2022, Jefferson is, of course, going to be a part of that offense once again. Honorable mentions in the first round: Jonathan Taylor anytime after 1.01, Najee Harris anytime after 1.07, and Devontae Adams anytime after pick 110. Has the concern for Alvin Kamara gone too far? I think so. In a recent set of tweets, friend of the podcast, Drew Davenport, you can follow him at Drew Davenport F on Twitter, has spoken about how Alvin Kamara's situation may not be resolved until after the season. If that's the case, Kamara is the biggest value in the second round of fantasy drafts. He's being drafted at the 2.06 behind Javonte Williams, behind Mark Andrews, and behind CeeDee Lamb. Only Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris have higher 3-year win rates over the last, and Harris has only played 1 year. Christian McCaffrey hasn't played more than a few games over the last 2 seasons. Kamara, despite the low efficiency in 2021, still put up the 4th best running back win rate behind Harris, Austin Eckler, and Jonathan Taylor. He's the most sure thing of this New Orleans offense. And with no big back added in the draft, the Saints may be rolling with Kamara, Tony Jones, and undrafted free agent Abram Smith. Yes, the Saints added Landry, and maybe they get Michael Thomas back in addition to that first-round wide receiver Chris Olave. But the Saints will be in better scoring position in 2022. Those 3 wide receivers are upgrades over Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris, among others. Oh, and Taysom Hill won't be vulturing as many goal line rushes. Some honorable mentions in the second round include Deebo Samuel after the 2.02, Leonard Fournette after the 2.06, and Tyreek Hill after the 2.08. In round 3, once again, this is a tough call. A lot of these early ADPs, they're pretty close in value, and there aren't a lot of avoids or values. So you have to stick pretty close to ADP. But if I were to pick a value in round 3, I would lean Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has a 53.3% wide receiver win rate, both over the last 3 seasons and in 2021. He's the model of consistent wide receiver 2 production tied to a high-powered offense. Even though he's gotten a bit older, Allen hasn't shown signs of slowing down. He was wide receiver 8 in win rate in 2021, only behind Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Jefferson, Adams, and of course the top 3 wide receivers of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Brown, Evans, and Godwin. Keenan Allen may have recorded 0 games at or above 24.3 fantasy points, like that wide receiver 1 winner status that you want your wide receivers to hit. But 30% of the time, he was between 19.3 and 24.3 fantasy points, and another 19.9% of the time between 16.5 and 19.3. The Chargers made no significant changes to their wide receiver core. They just brought back Mike Williams. They have Josh Palmer, Jalen Guyton, and Keenan Allen still figures to be a big part of that passing offense in 2022. Drafting Allen anytime after 3.01, that's your value. Honorable mentions Josh Allen after the 3.02, Jalen Waddle after the 3.06, and Deontay Johnson after the 3.08. In round 4, I'll keep the LA Charger train rolling right along. Justin Herbert has an ADP of 46.8, but I have his 1 and 3 year percentile adjusted ranks to be between 40 and 41. Herbert is quarterback 6 in 3-year win rate and quarterback 4 last year in win rate. And for quarterbacks, I define win rate a little bit differently. I need my quarterbacks to be getting at least 22 fantasy points, which is, if you're doing the math in your head, 2 passing touchdowns, 4 points each, 300 passing yards, and at least 20 rushing yards. And while the ways to get 22 or more fantasy points can vary from quarterback to quarterback, you wouldn't expect Joe Burrow to get it the same way that Jalen Hurts does. It's not an easy bar to hit, but Justin Herbert has shown that he can both rush and throw the ball to get to that 22-point threshold. And while Patrick Mahomes for me was also consideration here in the 4th round, I leaned to Herbert because nothing has changed. He hasn't changed his head coach. He hasn't changed his wide receiver core. He hasn't changed running backs. Nothing has changed for Justin Herbert. But losing Tyreek Hill and adding Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling means that a lot more needs to go right for Patrick Mahomes to return that 4th round draft capital. Honorable mentions in the 4th round: Antonio Gibson after the 4.01 and Amari Cooper after the 4.08. And what goes up must come down. It's what I've said on the Fantasy Football Fanalist podcast, and I'll continue to say it here. In my fades list versus ADP podcast last week, I identified Tony Pollard as a fade because Ezekiel Elliott is still on the Cowboys as their lead back. Now, in the 5th round, it's going to be hard to pass up Ezekiel Elliott, as he's usually going as the first pick in the 5th round. I have Zeke's adjusted percentile rank at the 4.04 right now. So almost a round ahead of ADP. Even in a bad season for Elliott, where he was injured for almost all the year, he still put up back-end running back 1 win rates. And over the last 3 seasons, Zeke's 57.9% win rate is 8th highest among all running backs. Drafting Zeke anytime in the late 4th round should return on value. Honorable mentions in the 5th round: Kyler Murray after the 5.02, Lamar Jackson and Josh Jacobs after the 5.01. In the 6th round, one of my favorite smashes is Brandon Cooks. While Cooks is being drafted as the 6.05, I have him ranked as the 5.07, nearly a round ahead of ADP. Cooks, despite being on the Houston Texans, posted a 50.3% wide receiver win rate last season. That was 12th best among all wide receivers. Davis Mills reprises his role as starting quarterback, and without meaningful competition for targets in 2022, Brevin Jordan, John Mechie coming off an ACL tear, Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks is poised to challenge as a back-end wide receiver 1 yet again. He'll be an easy stack with Davis Mills. Honorable mentions in the 6th round: Amon-Ra St. Brown anytime after 6.01, Elijah Mitchell anytime after the 6.01, and Russell Wilson after the 6.05. Enjoy the 7th. Take it out to a dinner and a movie. Wine and dine it. Treat it with love, because come December and January, this round is going to prove the most value. Tom Brady, Adam Thielen, Jalen Hurts, Hunter Renfrow, they all live in the 7th round. they're going to be delightful additions to your fantasy roster. And depending on what you need, this is a great place to get a quarterback or a plug-in wide receiver. Heck, even AJ Dillon isn't a bad pick for those anchor 0 RB builds in this round. The only major avoid, as I mentioned on my previous podcast, is Dallas Goedert here in the 7th round. Now, if you thought the 7th round was a treat, take the 8th round on a date. Let me tell you, I'll tell you some great dates you can take the 8th round on. Go hang gliding with the Eagles, Miles Sanders, or Seahawks, Tyler Lockett. Go to the rodeo and wrestle some Rams with Matthew Stafford, or ride with some Cowboys like Dak Prescott. Even meet some Patriots like Damian Harris or Chiefs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They'll be sure to post value. And maybe while you're at the zoo, you may see a Jaguar, Christian Kirk. You really can't go wrong with any of these players in the 8th round of your best ball leagues. They've been all priced down for various reasons, but offer tremendous upside. And this is the big note. Most of your starting roster spots have already been filled at this point. So you're just taking shots at upside, and all of these players offer either the opportunity or the talent to achieve those upsides that may be not available later. In the 9th round has the perfect 0 RB pick, Kareem Hunt. I have Kareem Hunt priced as an early 7th round running back value. To get him in the 9th round it's to discount him too much. Hunt is running back 34 right now on drafters.com, but he's been running back 22 over the last 3 years and running back 18 in 2021 in running back win rate. And look, Cleveland may cut Kareem Hunt to save cap space, but Kareem Hunt had a higher percentile adjusted rate of scoring 23.6 fantasy points last season than Nick Chubb. Perhaps a change of scenery would be a good thing for Hunt's fantasy value. Either way, Hunt is a spike week waiting to happen on a more potent Browns offense with the addition of Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Some honorable mentions in the 9th round: Russell Gage, Aaron Rodgers, Allen Lazard, Chase Claypool, and Rashad Penny. In the 10th round, the last round I'll look at tonight, in the 10th round, Tyler Boyd is almost always forgotten about. Remember, Boyd had 2 1,000 receiving yard seasons before T. Higgins and Jamar Chase came to town. And even so, Boyd had a 19.1% win rate in 2021, which is higher than some of the wide receivers going ahead of him, including Kadarius Toney, Brandon Ayuk, Rashad Bateman, and Gabriel Davis. Boyd hits your best ball lineups as a wide receiver too, like 12 to 14% of the time over the last 3 seasons. And the reason why you want to get Boyd at this spot is there is a massive drop-off at wide receiver for about the next 2 rounds. Then, like in round 13, like Devontae Parker becomes a little bit more interesting. But if Chase or Higgins goes down for injury, Boyd is a proven commodity. He's going to contribute no matter what, but he's on the Cincinnati Bengals. He may not be a hot pick, but he, even so, is undervalued here in the 10th round. Some honorable mentions as well in the 10th round: Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I've talked at length about MVS. Kirk Cousins with the Minnesota Vikings. And I encourage you, rotate through your flyers, take Rob Gronkowski until we hear news otherwise that he's retiring. That'll do it for today's pod. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the Best Bell Fantasy Podcast, make sure you do wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure to check out the Best Bell Fantasy YouTube channel, where I'll be drafting throughout the offseason. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And tomorrow, I'll be drafting live at 9 p.m. Eastern in the FFWC's Superflex tournament. In the meantime, good luck in the best ball streets.